All right, welcome everyone to ANC3F July 19, 2022 meeting. It's now 7:04. I will call the meeting to order. I will now start with a roll call. So I will start with, and it's out of order, but I'm going to start calling all the commissioners. Commissioner James Tenderick.
Present.
Commissioner Deepa Mehta.
Present.
Commissioner Monica Nemeth.
Present.
Commissioner Stan Wall.
Present.
Commissioner Alexandria Appa.
Present.
And I see Commissioner Chris Steele is logging on just now. He's joining, but we have a quorum. All the commissioners are moving on with the agenda to adoption of tonight's meeting agenda. I would like to request to move Lieutenant Burnett Williams up to section 5. So right after the treasurer or the commissioners, or well, right after the treasurer's report, because she has to work at like 2 a.m. this morning. So she's on tonight just to give us a brief update and then prepare for tomorrow. And then I'd like to also add a resolution, a Van Ness Main Street resolution to be at the end of our meeting.
Okay, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you very much. Now moving on to approval of ANC3F meeting minutes for the June meeting, June 22nd, 2022 meeting. And Commissioner Tenderick sent that out to all the commissioners last week. Are there any adjustments to the meeting minutes for June? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 22nd?
I motion to approve the meetings for our June public meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? And the motion passes. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is approval of FY 2022 quarter 3 quarterly report. And that covers April 1, 2022 to June 30, 2022. Are there any comments regarding the FY 22 quarter 3?
I'll give just a quick overview in terms of where we are. The payments during the quarter were largely relating to our administrative support for the period, as well as payments for quarterly taxes. As of the end of the quarter, we have $46,742 on deposit in our bank. So we remain in strong financial condition, and I will take any questions on the report.
Commissioners, have we got any questions? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the FY 22 quarter 3 report?
Make a motion to approve the report.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor to approve FY 22 quarter 3 report, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you. Now moving on to the next item on our agenda. which is commissioner updates. And I am just going in order of my screen. I will start with Commissioner Tanderick.
Hey everyone, my only update is that I am planning on running for ANC commissioner. So it'll be for 3F05. Like I've been sharing with our past monthly meetings, the boundaries have changed, the SMDs have changed, and so my address that was in 3F07, I'll be in 3F05, and so I will be planning to run for that position. If you live in the area, I might stop on by and say hello. Get signatures and whatnot. So yeah, I'm just happy just to keep doing the work with y'all, and I hope to get everyone's support.
Thank you, Commissioner Tanderick. Commissioner Monica Namath.
Thank you. So piggybacking on what James had said, I, after 2 terms, will not run for re-election or not run for election this time. I need a break. The boundaries have changed significantly in for the SMDs. So ask everyone to please be very much aware that a substantial portion of what is today 3F06 is not going to be in the new 3F01. In fact, I believe much of it will be in what would be, I'm not even sure now off the top of my head what Commissioner David's new SMD number would be, but I think you would wind up inheriting much of what is currently in my district will wind up in your SMD. And also, just so people are aware, there are a number of people currently in 3F who will no longer even be in 3F because the boundary is along Reno Road for a significant portion of ANC3F. So I have constituents who currently live across the street from me who will not only not be in my SMD, but will be in ANC3E. So anyone who's interested in running, please, I encourage people to run, and also look at the maps. Take a look at where exactly you fall because everything is different with the new maps. Substantial changes to our districts. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Namath, and Commissioner Tanderick did put a link in the chat to the new makeup of ANC3F. Moving on to Commissioner Stan Wall, if you've got any updates for us.
I do, and actually I'll use this to provide my treasurer update. So we approved the quarterly report earlier. I wanted to remind people that we are getting close to our next grant evaluation and award season. So our next evaluation of grants will be in our September board meeting, and grant applications must be submitted at least 24 hours before that meeting in accordance with our grant policies. After evaluating the grants and posting them online, we will then vote on awarding a grant in October. So reminder to folks of our grants, I'm pasting a link in the chat to our grants page that includes all of our guidelines as more information about the process. But definitely, encourage folks who have community supporting needs, community organizations that will help improve welfare here in the area to pursue a grant. And generally the grants range between $100 to $3,000 is their typical grant award. But all the information is on our website, and definitely please apply if you have some good ideas for what might support the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. Commissioner Christille.
Thanks, Chairman David. Yeah, so I think another on the kind of what's going on is some of you may know that there's a proposal that the National Park Service has been floating that they're going to reopen Beach Drive to traffic after the summer's over, and there's a public review process and comment period that's open right now. So if you like that Beach Drive is open all year round to cyclists and pedestrians and so on, and don't want cars to come back, you need to weigh in, because the preferred option that National Park Service is supporting is opening it up for 9 months during the work year. They'll close it during the weekends and holidays, but they are going to proposing to reopen it to traffic. So if you have an opinion about that, now's the time to weigh in. And then on that kind of note, there's been a lot of feedback on the Connecticut Avenue bike lanes, and so the design process is going on. And I think if there's somebody here from Streets and Sidewalks tonight, they can give an update on that. But that's an ongoing process, and encourage people to stay engaged and involved in that, because now it's getting into the nitty gritty about, where's parking going to go, where is it not, how are the bike lanes going to navigate the intersections and so on, where's the loading going to go. Important details to kind of keep this project moving forward. That's my update. And then again, piggybacking on what Commissioner Tanderick and Nemis said, the place I live right now in 3F01 is going to be in ANC3C next year. So if I run again, which I'm not, I would be in ANC3C. So kind of an early, it's been fun, but again, we'll be in ANC3C next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Christel. Commissioner Deepa Mehta.
Hi, sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. A heads up that I will have posted on our website a letter dated July 11th that was received last week by me from DDOT Director Everett Lott in response to a comprehensive memo that I submitted back in end of January of this year, requesting certain traffic safety mitigation measures. A number of those requests were denied or delayed for further evaluation. Two in particular are I find most troubling, because I believe that they are the most acute problems, which I intend to follow up on, and will write a follow-up letter to Everett Lott at DDOT. The letter is going to be available. I don't want to go through that letter. There's too much in here, and it's too technical, but we will make that letter available on the ANCs on our website. And I don't think that I have anything else. I will preface, Commissioner David, that when DC Water speaks, I'd like to preface some of that with information about a meeting we had last week, but I think the context is better at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mehta. And then last but not least, our Vice Chair, Commissioner Alexandria Appa.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairwoman. I don't have any major updates. I also want to piggyback on Commissioner Tanderick's comment about re-election. As some of you know, 3F02 is combining with 3F07 to become 3F05. Therefore, Commissioner Tanderick is running. I will not seek re-election. And so I hope that if there are, of course, if there are others who want to run, happy to talk through the process as well. But I'm also happy to continue to support on the committees in my current capacity, and wish Commissioner Tanderick the best of luck. And that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Appa. One last announcement is there's a crime prevention training on Thursday, July 21st. If you want to learn how to start a neighborhood watch program, prevent crimes of opportunity, email Nolan Tutor, NOLANTUTOR @yahoo.com. And that's Thursday, July 21st at 7 p.m. So thank you everyone for your updates, and thank you all the commissioners for your service for those who are not planning on running again. Moving on to the agenda, we'll now start with Lieutenant Burdett Williams, who will give us a safety update.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having. Commissioner, I sent you the crime stats. Are you able to share that? I'm not on my laptop.
Yeah, give me.
Commissioner,
Give me a sec.
Sure. All of our crime stats have gone down, with the exception of our retail thefts, which are still our driving crime, followed very closely by theft from auto. but really happy with our crime stats. A significant drop in the last 30 days since our last meeting, and all due in part to some really great lockups that our crime suppression team and patrol members have made over the last probably about 3.5 weeks now. A lot of traffic enforcement up and down Connecticut Avenue on all shifts. And with that, I'm gonna immediately go to questions because I know there's a few questions floating out in the community. Thank you, Kim.
For some reason I can't share. Okay, for some reason I can't share. I have a PowerPoint up, and so for some reason I can't share it.
Okay, I can go through them real quick. All of our violent crime is down to 0 for the last 30 days. So those violent crimes being homicide, sex abuse, assault with dangerous weapons, and robberies, they're all down. Where we had no crimes for the last 30 days. Our burglaries, we've had none in the last 30 days. We've had 9 theft from autos, so we're down from 12 to 9. Our thefts are up by 1. We had 9. We had 1 vehicle stolen from 4 the 30 days prior. We had 1 this 30 days. And we had 0 arsons. And the tweet that went out about the individuals having carnal relations in front of CVS at the Van Ness Metro, both individuals were arrested on site by responding officers. I know that was a big community question. And I don't see anything else in the chat. Does anyone have questions for me?
Commissioners?
I saw a question actually in the chat that was directed to me. There was an attempted ATM robbery at the Saratoga. Are you aware of the status of that, Lieutenant?
No, I'm not aware of an attempted. So when we say robbery, is it a theft? Did someone vandalize it? What people label as a robbery is, we're pretty specific what a robbery is.
This question came from Mr. O'Neill. If you're able to speak, oh, he just posted 3 men in a mask with a crowbar.
I am not familiar with that case. I was not made aware of that case at all. So I'm sorry, I don't have any information on the apartment building, Saratoga.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't aware that I was able to speak. Yeah, this happened probably about a month or so ago. It was in the Saratoga. I live in the neighboring Chesapeake, and there's an ATM that's been down in the common area for quite some time. And 3 men came in with masks, and they actually had a key fob. They were able to get in with a key fob that they obtained somehow. And they attempted to get the ATM open with the crowbar and created a lot of damage in the process. Our security was able to confront them, pull his weapon, and then they ran. And since then, we haven't heard anything, and we haven't gotten any updates from management either.
Okay, I would initially, Mr. O'Neill, start with management. If they have report, email me the report number, and I'll follow up with the ANC so they can send it out to everyone. But I am with it. I did just take over the PSA a little bit. It's been a month and 4 or 5 days that I've had the PSA.
Got it. Okay, yeah, they said that they had security footage and that they're cooperating with MPD. So I can see if I can get a number for you.
Right, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
I think David Barden, you have a question?
Yes, I'm David Bardeen, a former ANC commissioner and a former chairman of this ANC. Some time ago, we had a shooting incident which seemed to be directed at the Burke School. And I wonder, Lieutenant, whether there's anything else new has come to light about the incident, how it could have been, whether it could have been handled better in any way, but the reasons for it. What have you learned in the last few weeks that you could add to what we know about that incident?
The department was, thank you for the question. The department has been very transparent with the individual that was involved in that shooting and the unfortunate mental state that that gentleman was in. As far as best practices, when department is involved in any type of critical incident, we do what we call a hot wash. And then we sit and we talk about how we can improve our response. Our SWAT team will go through it. Our tactical operators will go through the act of every officer. We watch hundreds of hours of video footage, management sits and discusses. We look at what resources we needed, what we had on site, how well we performed. And in this particular case, we had glowing reviews from our review process. Our second district officers responded in a matter of less than a minute. They were on scene. The gentleman was neutralized very quickly. We were able to secure the area, move victims away from this individual's line of fire, and then attempt to negotiate to bring him into successful custody. As we know, unfortunately, the individual did take his own life. As far as the ongoing investigation, that part I'm not privy to because that will be handled by our intelligence unit. But as far as, the second district officer's response, I mean, they knocked it out of the park. They did a phenomenal job and definitely mitigated additional loss and injury to the public.
Thank you for that answer, Lieutenant. But following that up, will the people who are still investigating, the intelligence unit, as a result of their investigation, going to be made available to the ANC and to the public in this neighborhood?
I would say no, because the remainder of that investigation leans more on best practices for recognizing if an individual is going through that type of crisis. We're looking at social media, we're looking at social media companies, and how do we get this information? How are we alerted? So the best practices result of that investigation translate into a detective's role in a situation like that, not the immediate response. Our folks are trained as first responders. Those guys are trained on the aftermath of it. So that's more of an internal learning mechanism for the department.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
I think Kim F has a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopper.
Okay, sorry
wait.
about that.
Okay, yeah. It's good now, or it was good. Commissioner Appa.
Sorry, I was just trying to bring up the presentation. I'll just give you a moment. I'm going to unshare and then share again. I just want to make sure it's on the right screen and working on dual screen. So I apologize for the intrusion.
So I did want to speak
Lieutenant.
one shooting that we did have that we investigated that was up in the Forest Hills area right off of Branch Road, where we had sounds of gunshots over hours, like 12:30 in the morning. And our officers went up there and found 4 shell casings, but it appeared that the individuals were behind the DC line and shooting into federal area, into the woods. And, we had no usable lookout. We did have some video, but we weren't able to actually see anything on the video. So in response to that, we put out patrols on the evening and midnight tours and started doing a lot of traffic enforcement up in that area to kind of disrupt anybody that wanted to come back in.
Thank
Any
you.
other?
Thank you, Lieutenant Williams. Seeing no additional, Kim has her hand raised. Kim.
Sorry, I got cut off somehow. I just wanted to thank Lieutenant Burde. That's really incredible news. Thank you for your work. And do you have any sort of reasoning why it's changed? Or, what's different now this month?
Ooh,
Has there been more coverage?
we're awesome. That's why it's different.
You guys have always been awesome, but I mean,
We're more awesome. No,
okay,
I mean, It's really hard. And I got to tell you, these guys and girls have been out there knocking it out of the park. They're making great arrests. We've targeted some areas with some heightened traffic enforcement. I'm currently working with CVS to mitigate some of these shoplifting cases, trying to figure out a solution. I've been meeting with a lot of businesses on the Connecticut Avenue corridor. We've done some visits with apartment buildings, just, getting out there face to face and really disrupting people wanting to do crime. We've made some great arrests. So.
Okay, thank you. And I had communicated with Lieutenant Amadeo and Commander Bedlian and
Yes, ma'am.
Kai at one point about doing an event up in Forest Hills, just because we haven't met up in Forest Hills in a long time with NPD. It's been since like January of 21, but it was all going on. We were talking when Lieutenant Amadeo went to HQ. So
Okay.
I can follow up with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's discuss it offline and see what we can organize with Ms. Branch.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Lieutenant Williams, I did hear you were at 4700 Connecticut Avenue recently. So I appreciate that. And maybe, with Kim, we could, within the ANC, we could, try to coordinate something with all the apartment buildings, because it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening. And thank you so much, Lieutenant Williams. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you on so quick. Now I can go to sleep.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Okay. And thank you, Commissioner Oppa. We could take down the presentation now.
Okay, I just want to make sure which screen, it's hard for me to tell which screen it's on. I want to be able to, what you should see is the crime stats that are up. For some reason, I feel like, are you seeing just the crime stats? Or are you seeing like the presentation mode?
We're seeing crime stat, and on the side, the other slides.
The other slides, okay.
But crime stats is on the main.
Is the main, okay, so my apologies. I'm gonna try to figure out how to make sure this is sharing appropriately on the screen, so, but I'll take it down for now.
Okay, no worries, but I'll need you at the end, but thank you so much. All right, and then we'll move on. So for those who just joined, we just changed the agenda a little bit so Lieutenant Williams could prepare for tomorrow morning. So we had her start before the committee reports. So now we're moving on to committee reports. Is anyone, the chair, anyone can speak on the Streets and Sidewalks Committee?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman. Paul Harrison here. So Streets and Sidewalks met. We did another site visit out to over by the Kuwaiti Embassy on Fessenden Street, which has been near what's known as the Palacio, that big $12 million house that's for sale, as a particular place where we have been asking for sidewalk network gaps to be fixed for some time. And unfortunately, DDOT has once again this year zeroed out the budget in our ANC, at least, for additional sidewalk improvements. So we have begun a conversation about other methods that DDOT could use that are not capital intensive to address these problems. And we've noticed that there's a lot of places around the neighborhood that do need that. So we're going to be preparing a resolution for the committee for the commission based on that. We also spoke, it's been big news that the National Park Service came out with its Upper Beach Drive report, proposing that Upper Beach Drive be accessible to pedestrians and bicycles only during the summer season, and 75% of the time be used as a commuter route for motor vehicles. So that's in opposition to what most of the public comments said, and most of the elected officials in DC, and also what most of the ANCs, particularly in Ward 3, said. So we'd like to reach out to the commissioners to talk about a cross ANC approach to addressing that before the end of the National Park Service's comment period, which is not that far off. We also spent a little time talking about the recent Connecticut Avenue study meetings, which have raised some contention. So that's another place where we probably need some ANC coordination to make sure that we are helping DDOT properly convey what it's doing and what some of the choices ahead are, which didn't work real well there. And apparently there's some folks who are organizing to reverse the decision to put bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue, some of which may not be from this ward. So we need to get focused on that. So those were our main elements. And as always, we meet, I believe, the second Tuesday of the month. So if you're interested in joining us, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you.
And
I would like to add just one quick thing. I just want to thank the Streets and Sidewalks Committee for helping to work with DDOT to fix the sidewalk that's on Van Ness in front of the Van Ness apartments. That has been broken for a couple of years. And so they were finally able to get that done. So I appreciate you guys doing that, because we have a lot of elderly folks in our building or disabled folks in our building who were unable to use the sidewalk safely. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Abba. And I will note that DDOT is getting better at responding to repair requests. And they actually had kind of a time when they were trying to really put in some extra juice into that. But we also were able to get the barrier at the corner of 32nd and Albemarle by the soapstone entrance, which had been damaged by fallen trees. That's now been replaced with a proper fence to keep people from plunging into Soapstone Creek. So let us know if you have problems or issues that we can help push before DDOT.
I wanted to echo Commissioner Appa's recognition to you, Paul, and to Bob and the committee for that one, and also your diligence in pushing these forward. I know that the situation at 32nd still isn't ideal, but hopefully through your ongoing work, we can get a better situation in terms of making that crossing safer at 32nd and Albemarle. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely more to do there.
I also want to throw in my thanks too, because I think commissioners come and go, but in ANC3F, Streets and Sidewalks Committee continues. So, so thanks, Paul, for carrying the torch. I know Bob's going to stay involved, but it's great to have some new leadership. And it's really important that, again, as commissioners do come and go, that, what's behind us in all the committee work keeps on going, and Streets and Sidewalks done an amazing job. So keep up the good work. Thanks.
Definitely echo what everyone was saying too. Paul, I was just asking if there's like a link to like the public comment regarding like the beach stride situation. Like I'd love to be able to hear more on that, because I'm starting to get emails from constituents like we're just regarding that issue as well.
Yeah, I'm going to post something in the chat, but I'm going to send some information to the commissioners as a whole, talking about what we can do moving forward. Because I think, after spending an enormous amount of time dithering on this, NPS then turned around and said, we're making our decision very quickly. So we have to get engaged.
Thank you, Paul. If we could just make sure too that you connect with our admin, Rachel Warsham, so we get the meetings on our website.
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have we got anyone from Parks and Watersheds Committee on?
I don't think we do. I know I talked to the chair, Erica Rosenberg, and she wasn't able to make tonight, but I know that they spent a lot of time, kind of essentially working on the Hearst and the what's I guess called reservation. I can't remember what it's called. The old Melvin Hazen. There's been a lot. When it rains very heavily, there's a lot of flooding there, so they've been working on that particular part. On the bright side, the Hearst Park and Pool's been opening up, and it's been a lot of people have been using it. So if you're looking for a place to cool off during the summer heat, the pool's open there. It's really good. There's 2 tennis courts that are fully functional, and according to the committee, the soccer field's holding up pretty well. So it's a great community asset that if you didn't know about before, please go take a visit. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Christel. Have we got anyone from Schools and Universities Committee?
Yeah, so I can speak up on that. So a couple of things. So first thing, most importantly, is that Tavon Donovan, our chair, has actually stepped down from her role. I think me and Commissioner Appa really want to thank her for her work the past year and just making sure that our small but mighty committee is still forming strong. That being said, if anyone here is interested in becoming the chair of the committee or being a part of it, please just let me know. Please let me or Commissioner Appa know. That'd be really, really great as well. A couple of things. So in our last meeting, me and Commissioner Appa spoke with Judith Ingram and Juanita Gray. Judith is with the food pantry, which I think you guys have been hearing about recent news, along with Juanita from UDC. And it's a very productive meeting on just sharing ways in which we can somehow keep the pantry within UDC. That is still an ongoing developing thing right now, but I know that with UDC, they're trying their best to make sure that the food pantry can stay in UDC as much as it can. So that's still an updated thing going on with that kind of stuff. And then something that I'm planning to sort of work on with the committee more is that, as people may have heard, the Widow School is no longer in operation. It's a very recent thing. And so I'm planning to get in touch with people from the Widow School and get a sense of like what happened to the building afterwards, and try to see how can the ANC can help along in that sort of like decision-making process. So that'll be sort of like an ongoing issue in the next few months. So that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Derek. We will now move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is the.
Is this stuff on housing and neighborhoods, Commissioner?
I set that aside for the update from Wayne Turnage's office.
But hey, Commissioner
Yes.
Chair, David, I do want to, I had a conversation just before the meeting, and Ryan Keefe has agreed to chair, at least in a temporary role, the Housing and Neighborhoods Commission. So I think he's on. So that's good news for us. So thanks, Ryan, if you're still with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So we'll move on for right now, but the next meeting we'll get an update from Ryan. So right now we'll move on to the community forum. I listed some regulars. We'll start with the regulars and then we'll go into any other community updates. So we'll start with Van Ness Main Street, then UDC, then Almoker, and then any other updates. Is Gloria, are you on? Okay. I thought I saw.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't unmute myself, Claudette. Good evening, everyone. Gloria Garcia, Van Ness Main Street. I want to thank, first of all, Claudette and the ANC for taking up the resolution tonight on such short notice. I really, really appreciate it. We are working on Art All Night, which is this year is going to entail having 20 main streets on. So it's a much larger deal, and we have to abide by some different and new permitting situations. So thank you to the ANC for taking this up this evening. Van Ness Main Street is working on our summer events series. We have our movie night tomorrow night. So anyone who wants to come see the last movie really of the summer, because we don't pick up again until September. Tomorrow night, it's a movie will start at 8:30, gathering at 7:30. It's Space Jam: A New Legacy. We are also, as I said, working on Art All Night. That is our big next event, and it's citywide. It's the mayor's event. And so you'll be getting more information on that. As most of you know, Acacia is another one of our businesses that we lost, but I have been in contact with UDC and with the leasing company, and we have great interest in that space. So Van Ness Main Street is going to do everything in its power to get another great restaurant in that space. So thank you everyone who's reached out with their concerns. Also want to note that Flavor Garden has opened, and we hope that people will try it out. It's in the Days Inn space, and so it has added a little bit of a more normalcy to that building. So thank you for anybody who has already gone. But the food is actually pretty scrumptious. So, and the last thing I want to update everybody on is that today, the director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development, for who gives us the majority of our funds, did a corridor walkthrough, and we visited Flavor Garden. We did Italian Bar. We did Rosemary's Bistro, and then the trifecta of Muchas Gracias, Bucks, and Comet Ping Pong. So it was a good visit, and she really, really was impressed with the community and how much our businesses survived through the pandemic. So that's really all I have for now. If anyone has any questions of me, but again, thank you to the ANC for taking up my resolution this evening.
Thank you, Gloria. Any questions, comments from commissioners? anyone in any community comments? Gloria? Okay, is Juanita on from UDC?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Juanita.
Hello, Commissioner. How are you?
Good.
Good. Hello, everyone. Just a few quick things. I thought I missed it, but I didn't, so I typed some things in the chat. So we will be testing the tennis court lights the week of August 8th. Those residents who reside on Yuma Street and those who reside at Park Van Ness will get notices in the mail with a link for a survey on how, if in any way the lights impacted them in their homes. And then we also have a meeting with Councilmember Che. This meeting was asked for by members of the community regarding the tennis court. So this will be the second meeting that we'll be having with Councilmember Che on the tennis courts, and that will be on August 3rd. If community members want to attend that, I would advise that they get in contact with John Young because he is the community lead on that for the community. As Commissioner Tanderick already talked about, we have been working with Feed the Food Pantry. Their lease has been extended until August 31st. And then I know our team has been working with them to try to identify a space. We're not 100% that that's going to happen, but we are making a very concerted effort to see what we can do with that. And then otherwise, unless Acacia, as Gloria talked about, they have moved out, but we do have some pretty interested vendors for that space. And then we are mostly on time. Getting some materials in for All Care and for moms has been an issue, but that's been an issue for a lot of people doing any type of renovations right now. Materials are just hard to come by, or they're sitting on someone's dock somewhere not being unloaded. So, but we are pretty much still on track with that. So those two spaces should be opening up, if not later this year, at the beginning of 2023.
All right, Commissioner Christil has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Juanita. I was going to ask about the update on moms. So I guess what you're saying is the end of this calendar year is when they're expected to be in?
That is what we hope, what they hope. But again, materials, it's been a challenge getting things in that are needed. And again, that's just not with them, that's across the country. But the work is still, if you walk by there, you'll see movement. They're in there every day.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wall has a question.
Yes, thank you, Juanita, for the updates. I was wondering if it might be possible for either President Mason or Mr. Franklin to join us in September, to give a broader update on just campus-wide capital facilities, including leasing activity, as well as any other plans that might be in the works on UDC's campus itself. Would that be possible for 2 months from now?
Yes, I will reach out to his executive assistant this evening with that request.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have we got any more questions from commissioners?
I just have one final follow-up question. Stan, I think, Commissioner Wall, I think that's a great recommendation. Juanita, I just had a quick question about, I know the process for leasing the space in which the food pantry is in process currently. Are there any updates there about who's going to be leasing that space?
I still can't say.
Okay, that's understood. Just wanted to know if there was an update there. Appreciate it.
But once I can, you all will be the first to know.
Understood. Yes, thank you.
Are there any questions from the community? Seeing none, thank you, Juanita.
Oh, I think there's a question. Sorry, there's more from my aim. Monica Huerta had a question.
Monica, you can speak.
I think she might be trying to take herself off mute.
Okay, we can move on. I see Ms. Karen Caston has a question. And then we'll go back to Monica.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So is it definite that the food pantry can't stay there or just looking unlikely?
No, it's definitely that they cannot stay in that space. We will be renting that space out to another vendor.
And what is the time frame in which it'll be rented out?
They are still working on lease negotiations, and once those are signed, then it's up to the vendor to start their renovation process of that space.
So you already have identified a vendor, right?
Correct.
And I mean, is there a chance it could be months?
I don't want to give you inaccurate information. Right now, the only thing that I can say is that we are in negotiations with the vendor. The contract should be signed within the next couple of weeks. And once that happens, I'll be able to give more information.
Including identifying who it is?
Yes.
I guess I'm only asking because my observation is that often contracts are signed and then the property sits vacant for months, during which I can't help but think it's sitting vacant. Why not let the current tenant who is doing such important work stay on during that time?
I cannot answer that question. Unfortunately, when leases are signed and agreed upon, that's just what happens.
There's a question in the chat that kind of follows along the same line of thinking. If you could maybe, from Jamie Butler, maybe take up that question, Ms. Or I can read it to you, or
I can read it right here. I guess the only thing I can say is that once the leaser takes over the lease, we can't force them to do anything. We can't say the lease is contingent upon you allowing these people to stay. It's up to the leaser to decide what they want to do. Now, could Feed the Pantry potentially go to the new leaser once they've signed the lease and ask them? That would be completely up to them and completely up to the leaser if they wanted to do that. But the university can't add conditions such as that to an ongoing negotiation for a lease for a vendor.
so I don't think that the questioner is saying the university should force or demand anything. The verb is ask. Why can't the university ask or suggest this?
Unfortunately, that's just not how it works.
I see Commissioner Mehta has her hands up.
Hi, Juanita, this is Deepa. A quick question around the food pantry. I don't know the current status, but I know that UDC either owns or at least controls quite a bit of idle retail space along Connecticut Avenue. I believe the student center, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the ground level space on the sidewalk frontage of the student center continues to be completely empty. It's been for years and years, actually, since the student center was built. Is any of that space not at least a temporary option for, period of 6 months, 3 months, that sort of thing? It's just, it seems hard it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the idea that UDC just doesn't have any space available for this operation, given how much retail space the university owns and controls that remains vacant.
We actually do utilize that space in the student center for various things, but we also just signed another lease with Perkins Management So we've been renovating the inside of the student center food court area. Perkins will be taking over starting this fall, the food court area, in addition to that space that you're talking about for whatever they're going to use it for. So those spaces are already spoken for.
Spoken for in that no one has actually leased them, but spoken for as
We've just signed a new lease with Perkins Management for those spaces. So for that particular space that you're referring to and for the dining area space.
Oh, so Perkins themselves are going to lease the space, they're not a commercial broker that's going to turn around and try to lease it.
Correct. They are
Okay.
leasing the space for dining.
And what about, forgive me, I'm not in town right now. What about Acacia Bistro space? It doesn't sound like anyone has signed up for that. Is that a temporary measure? It takes a long time to get restaurant space leased out, and I suspect that there's an opportunity there. Has that been considered?
So they are actively looking for vendors for that space, and that actually might get filled pretty quickly. I want everyone to understand that we are doing our best. David Franklin and his team, Javier Dusant, they are doing their best to work with the food pantry. This has not been you just have to get out now. This has been something that they've known about the lease since January in the MOU, that the lease was only until July 31st. We've worked with them to keep it until August 31st, and we're actively looking at potential spaces on our campus. So every space that everyone has brought up, they've thought about those spaces and they have ruled them out for whatever reason. And I don't have the laundry list of all the reasons. I would have to get those from David Franklin. But we have looked at all of our potential viable space and we've come up with nothing so far.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Juanita, for that update. Hopefully we have better news in September, but we'll keep working on that in the meantime.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Amir, have you got an update from the mayor's office?
Yes, Commissioner, I do. And first, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I have a few quick updates as far as initiatives and programs from the city and federal government. I want to start off with the Homeowners Assistance Fund, which is DC's assistance fund for homeowners that have suffered during the COVID-19 pandemic using money from the American Rescue Plan. And this is for DC homeowners that have fallen behind on any necessary payments for homeownership. That includes their mortgage, as well as HOA fees, utilities, property taxes, insurance, anything like that that's necessary for them to keep their house. And just like Stay DC, you can use this on previous missed payments as well as 3 months forward for future payments. And the necessary qualifications include being under a certain amount of income and having experienced financial hardships related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll post that in the chat. Very important fund for anyone that has experienced any sort of financial hardship like that. Another federally sourced program that I wanted to announce is the Affordable Connectivity Program. This is through the FCC, and anyone that is on any sort of federal government program qualifies for that. So that includes food stamps, SNAP, school lunch program, Medicaid, federal public housing assistance, women, infants, and children, veterans pensions, as well as SSI, which is probably the most common one. I'm sure many seniors that are on SSI would qualify for this program. And what this does is it allows you to receive a $30 discount on your monthly internet bill, and it allows you to get a one-time discount of up to $100 to purchase a laptop, desktop, computer, or tablet from participating providers if you contribute more than $10 and less than $50 towards the purchase price. So 30 off internet bill, that's the most major one, and I think a lot of people would qualify for that. So I'll post both of those in the chat. As well as that, we also have a DC program that many of you are probably familiar with, but I wanted to make sure that everyone is familiar with this, and this is the Private Security Camera Rebate Initiative. This is handled through MPD. And what this is it reimburses private citizens, including residents and businesses who purchase a security camera like Ring, Vivint. It doesn't really tell you what brand. It only gives you qualifications that are pretty bare bones minimum. Any of those market cameras qualify for that. And the rebate gives you up to $200 per camera for a maximum rebate of $500 per address for residential properties, or $750 maximum for a business. So you can get, let's say you have 3 cameras that are worth $300 and you're a business, you can get a total of $750 as a rebate. And what they require you to do is provide a proof of purchase with the receipt of the camera, as well as the type of camera, so they can make sure that it's the type of camera that qualifies for their program. And you'd also have to register your camera with MPD. And what that does is it gives them direct access. If there's any crime that is done and they want to use your camera for evidence, they can do that. It's gotten especially important for those worried about public safety, as well as other sort of crimes. We've heard about arson going on in some parts of Ward 3 for people's garages, backyards, and dumpsters. So if they want to have a private camera in the back of their property, they can take advantage of this rebate program. And finally, I wanted to make an announcement for the monkeypox epidemic. The mayor had a press conference yesterday regarding the monkeypox epidemic here in DC, and actually announced that we here in DC are experiencing the highest per capita caseload in the country. So luckily we do have vaccine availability, and we have a vaccine pre-scheduling system that's pretty similar to the COVID pre-scheduling system that happened early on in the COVID vaccine rollout. There is a website that you can pre-register in and choose time slots for your vaccination appointment. I believe there are a few vaccine options to choose from. I'm not sure if you actually choose or they choose for you, but I believe that those vaccinations are also a 2-series dose similar to the COVID vaccine. They're actually using smallpox vaccination doses because those are similar enough to work on the monkeypox virus, just repurposed. So it might be that if you've already had your smallpox vaccine before the 70s when they got rid of smallpox, then you might still be protected, but that would be a question for your doctor. With that said, the mayor also did release a newsletter before this press conference that kind of details what a transmission looks like, how it's transmitted, dispelling some rumors and misconceptions around the transmission of monkeypox, and also urges people to get vaccinated. So I will post that in the chat for those that are interested. They are currently prioritizing certain demographics that are considered more at risk of the virus, but I do anticipate that eventually it will become more open as those vulnerable groups are vaccinated and they get more availability of the vaccine. But that concludes my announcements. If there are any questions from the community and commissioners, I can take those as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners first? Any questions from the community? Seeing none, thank you so much, Mayor.
Chair David, one quick question. Earlier this year, we had posed to DC Housing Authority and other agencies. We submitted a request, a FOIA request for data as it relates to implementation of the voucher program here in 3F. Have you heard anything about that? And is there anything you could do to help us get, a response from the agency on our request?
I'm sorry, your request was the, are you talking about the request for more information, the FOIA?
Correct, yes.
I do not have any knowledge on that. That might be a question directly for the people in housing, because it's a sort of independent agency. Have you been in contact with the leader of the housing board, Brenda Donald?
We addressed the FOIA to their council.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any knowledge on that because they do operate sort of independently from us. I guess,
yeah, my request speaking, given that the mayor does appoint a representative to the board of the housing authority, in that capacity, is there a way to help us get at least a response to our request?
Yeah, I
So
can
then
ask
we
if they
could
can get a
do-
response. Yeah, that's what I can start out with, is seeing if they can send a response.
And I'll forward that to you again, Amir, just so you have the original request.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question from Mr. David Bardine?
Thank you, Chairman. Amir, I'm 89 years old and my background includes energy, public utilities, and reliability. The mayor has an important nomination to make. There's a vacancy on the Public Service Commission, which was created by the movement of Willard Phillips, former chairman of RPSC, to be a member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I think it's very important that she selects somebody who has a strong background in electric power reliability and a great interest in preventing blackouts and keeping our electric power supply working. And I'd like to find out, how can I be in touch with whoever is helping her make the nomination, and when is that nomination likely to come up?
Sure thing, Mr. Barden. I do appreciate your interest very much. Let me put my contact information in the chat, and please do contact me either by email or phone so that I can get you connected to the right person.
Okay, so I'm not sure how the chat works. If somebody could take it from the chat and email me your Amir's contact information, I would appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah, my phone number should be the easiest, but if you want to email as well.
I'll use your phone number, but I just want to make sure I get it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Bardine, I'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Amir from the community? Seeing none, I know I've got an update from for GoPuff. I forgot Danielle.
Sorry, Commissioner David. I think there's a question in the chat about crime. I don't know if this is directed towards Amir. Monica, I'm sorry, I can't. Your last name is cut off. You are able to come off of mute. We try to address your question earlier, but is your question directed towards Amir or for our earlier conversation around the crime stats with Lieutenant Williams?
I think that might be a better question for MPD. But I do want to say that the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice is still planning on having a pop-up in the ANC, as well as the Executive Office overall setting up quarterly meetings as discussed with the chair of this commission, and getting meetings set up with the different apartment buildings and their tenant associations to address some of these concerns, overarching concerns, not just the crimes, but also the way that units are rented out through the voucher system.
Thank you, Amir. And also, Monica, I don't know if you're able to come off of mute, but we had Lieutenant Williams who joined last month's meeting and the previous and this month's meeting, obviously. We are going to publish the crime stats on our website so that you can see them. Just as a quick recap, all the crime stats are down in the past 30 days, except for theft, which has gone up. There's an additional crime of theft in the past month. So she will continue to join our monthly meetings, and we will continue to open the floor for questions during that time as well.
Thank you, Vice Chair Appa. Now I'd like to pass it on to Danielle with GoPuff, who wants to introduce herself to the community.
Hi, thank you, Chairman, and hello, commissioners, everyone that is online. My name is Danielle D'Alessandro. I'm in corporate affairs with GoPuff. For those of you who may not be familiar with GoPuff, we do instant grocery delivery, and really much more than grocery. So we're kind of similar to, I like to do the comparisons and the contrast, but similar to an Instacart or a DoorDash in that we are a delivery platform, but we're different because we are also the retailer. So we have our own stores and that store all of our products along then with our delivery partners. We have a store that opened just about 4 months ago on Connecticut at 4221 Connecticut Avenue. Again, we house about 4,000 products that range from, again, your produce, your snacks, your beverages, but then a number of other categories, pet food, baby food. We are one of the few providers that tried to maintain a steady supply of baby formula during this baby formula shortage. We have COVID tests, so similar during the Omicron and Delta surges for COVID, we're able to safely and efficiently deliver at-home rapid tests to folks that were ill or couldn't leave their homes. But then we have cleaning supplies, health and beauty products. We like to say that 1 in 3 items that are available on our app, you can't find in a convenience store. But so we operate from 10 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. At our store on Connecticut Avenue. In some markets, we are open to the public. In our stores in DC are not. So they're dark stores. They are not available for walk-in retail. We kind of like that though, in a way, because it ensures that there's no loitering, people aren't hanging outside of our stores. So the idea is you go on our app, you order the items that you need, and we deliver them in about 30 minutes. I'd say in DC, it's probably closer to 45, just with the traffic. At least that's what I've experienced. I'm in DuPont Circle. But delivery in about 30 to 45 minutes for a flat fee of $3. I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. We want to be a part of the community. If there are concerns or issues, want to make myself available as the point of contact, recognizing that there's not necessarily a phone number or even our stores and our addresses that are listed anywhere online. So be a point of contact going forward. And then, of course, if there are community events or ways that we can participate and engage, whether it's on back to school drives, et cetera, we want to be involved in that. So I'll leave my remarks there. Again, thank you for the opportunity just to introduce myself, introduce GoPuff. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see questions from Commissioner Wall and Commissioner Mehta.
Quick question. Thank you for joining us this evening to introduce yourself and your company. My question is on the dark stores concept. I think it's great that GoPuff exists, as another means of providing, access to goods and, necessities for people by delivery. However, being on our commercial corridor with, a blank wall that's papered over doesn't do a lot to help, with the vibrancy of our commercial district. So my question is, has GoPuff considered other locations that are not necessarily, a storefront location if you're not going to actually open up a public store?
That's a great question. It's unlikely at this point in time that we're looking at opening any additional stores in DC. Given that we just opened this location about 4 months ago, I think it's probably unlikely that we would look for a different location in that area. So, finding real estate, our team goes through a number of different factors and a checklist that we need to account for. And so, I can go into some of those, but of course, I was not a part of the decision making around identifying this location and signing a lease agreement. So I certainly appreciate that. We do tend to take up much less square footage than a traditional warehouse would. We're typically around 4,000 square feet. To the extent though that we could potentially make that window or any decals that may make that more appealing, very open to that. I don't think though we're set up in a way where we could do walk-in retail. That being said, we are a pretty nimble and young company. And so if we need to pivot or adjust, we certainly find ways to do that. But at this point in time, we're probably going to remain there for the foreseeable future.
What about, if you're not going to open, what about something on a public art or just something to make that, again, I think we were chatting about, we didn't even know it was open. So just something that at least visually makes it, kind of more appealing than just sort of a, kind of a blank space. Again, I think Commissioner Wall is right where, if you heard the conversation around UDC's retail space, there's really, I mean, in Venice Main Street, we're really trying to activate that space, and, every little bit helps, even if it could be some, some new, again, public art. I mean, there's a lot of artists around, and maybe that's an opportunity to, showcase.
I think that's a great idea. I would love to explore that. We've done that similarly in other jurisdictions. I cover a pretty large region. Again, I'm based here in DC, have DC, but cover the entire South region. And so, we were exploring doing different murals down in Florida. I think that's a great idea to get the community engaged and potentially beautify that space with some local artwork. So I'd be happy to follow up on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mehta, and then Gloria.
Well, I think Commissioner Wall covered most of my questions. I do have one quick follow on, Danielle. Thank you so much for coming on, introducing yourself and GoPuff's business model and presence in the community. My question is, why, if it's the case that it's a binary decision between dark store and retail store, why is that? Can a location not be both? Is it just pure economics, or is there some other consideration?
Yeah, it mostly comes down to the rules and regulations of the market that we're operating in. So in New York City, for example, we are required by law to be open to the public. You can't have dark stores there. In DC, I will say that this location, we have 4 other sites, one though which we are winding down. This is the only, this is the only site that is kind of on a main thoroughfare. And so, but no, where we are open to the public, it does exist in both ways. Like we'll still have kind of the back, people will walk in and can kind of shop around for some snacks and beverages, or they're walking in just to pick up their order to go. And then we'll have all of our products then kind of behind. In some markets, it's all there and folks can kind of walk the aisle, but that's really the model that we've explored, works the best from an efficiency standpoint and being able to get those orders out pretty quickly. So again, it just depends on the rules of the market that we're operating in.
Thank you.
Gloria, you have a question?
No, I just want to comment. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, how are you? So Danielle, myself, and Alexandria, we had a call like 2 months ago now, right? So everyone's questions really do jive with, Venice Main Street's concerns, because they are, GoPuff is taking up now 2 retail front stores on our main street. And we really need retail frontage to draw foot traffic. But at the same time, I just want to direct people's attention to that GoPuff thus far has addressed our issues. Danielle was quick to get on a call because we did find GoPuff trash, somewhere. So, Danielle has expressed interest in supporting us. And while, as Danielle knows, I'm not happy that we have a ghost store in prime retail frontage, and we will work to figure, to push the company to do, something else. But for now, I just want people to understand that whole building is owned by Douglas. The landlord is the one that has been going after warehouse businesses. So, that is the one that we've been trying to push. And, we have Domain Storage, we have a sake store, we have a winery from Virginia. They're all operating out of this building, which has been approved. So, GoPuff is just probably someone that honestly Jamal attracted in kind of this warehouse mentality of that building. And unfortunately, those 2 spaces are hitting our main street. So we are going to do everything in our power to work with GoPuff, because I know Danielle understands where we're coming from. So we are going to work on some type of community engagement, whether it's, murals or sponsorships. But, I think we all know that at the end of the day, it is also a lot to do with the landlord or owner of the building. So just wanted to get that out there. Danielle, you still know I'm not happy with like you guys being a ghost store, but it is, we'll work together to try to figure this out.
One of the things that I find fascinating here, I would think is odd from a business standpoint, is you've got this prime frontage on Connecticut Avenue. You must be paying a premium in rent just for that frontage alone, and you're not making use of it. And I'm thinking, wow, that seemed like such a waste just from a business standpoint. So I'm just really shocked by that. Just a comment. I mean, I'm just really stunned by that. That seems like this is something you can just tuck away in a back corner. But anyway.
Understood.
Thank you, Commissioner Namath. Are there any other comments, questions before we move on to the next item on our agenda?
Sorry, and I'll just say really quickly, so it sounds like then we'll be in Commissioner Tenderic's SMD maybe in January, if I heard that correctly. So Commissioner, I'll make sure to reach out and introduce myself offline, and look forward to working together.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, community members.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. Now moving on to the next item of our agenda, we have Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage with DC's Health and Human Services. He's also Director of the Department of Healthcare Finance. And I wanted to welcome you and thank you so much, because you have a really busy schedule and you know how important the issue is in ANC3F in regards to health and human services. So please, if you can start off with just an update for ANC3F, and because I know you did a tour, you did a site visit recently, and what the plans are moving forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. More than happy to give you a quick update. I have been on several tours actually, and some of them have crossed into ANC3F with the landlords for apartment buildings that are either all voucher residents or part voucher residents. And basically these meetings have been designed to give me a better flavor, and my Chief of Staff, Kiana, who is also on the call, a better flavor of some of the challenges that the landlords and the residents who live in apartments that are not all voucher are having with a small number, but very impactful, I should say impactfully disruptive residents who sometimes struggle with the adjustment to housing. We've heard, the issues that have been raised range from the significant costs landlords face in trying to manage a small number of residents that really drive up their cost of being in the business. We've heard complaints from the residents of how difficult it is to live in an apartment building where there's some disorder, where residents, some are obviously spiraling downward either from mental health or drug addiction, and where in their minds, in their perception, and their experience, the city's response is not timely enough or not sufficient to remediate the problem. And so what we are trying to do is to first develop a communication portal that residents and landlords can immediately send to my team complaints about existing problems, virtually in real time. We then will use that information to get the appropriate agency out to the site to see if the issue can be addressed. Now, I will say that in my visits, it was very clear based on, I sat with some of these residents, and some of them were clearly cognitively impaired. Some of them were clearly struggling with, drug or alcohol issues. Not all of them, though, were in this. Some of them were in the veterans program. So we have to find out a way to coordinate with the VA to make sure that their case managers are sort of responding in the same way that we expect our case managers to respond. That we're doing that in the short term. In the long term, we're working with the city administrator, the mayor, to see if we can develop a new, housing model that's all site-based housing, but where the services are sort of on-site and wrapped into the cost of the city's lease with the vendor. It's a real challenge when somebody spirals downward at 3 o'clock in the morning in a building that is not completely voucher-based and there is no tenant. There's no case manager immediately available, and it takes a minute to get crisis out there. It's just when you go to site-based housing, there's a certain economies of scale that can be built into the supportive services that you can't do in scattered site housing. So, those are the things that we're looking at while we at the same time, wrap up the pilot program that we had operating in the city to try to house folks who were living in encampments more rapidly. That report goes to the mayor this month with recommendations for how we to move forward. And at the same time, on a parallel track, Laura Zeilinger, as the head of DHS, continues to execute the housing program for the system at large across all DC.
Thank you. If you could just bring your computer down a little bit, the screen down, so we could see your face fully. I
was trying to hide my bald head.
We will start with questions from the commissioners, and then we will go to questions from the community. But real quick question from just follow up from me is the timeline on everything you mentioned, and then I'll go to Commissioner Wall and then Commissioner Tenderick.
Okay. Kiana's on call. She's doing the work on setting up the clearinghouse where we will have a portal that people can reach out to us immediately. Kiana, can you give a sense of where we are in that process and when it might be launched?
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you. So regarding what we are speaking about with this portal, we have received numerous emails and calls both in our office and other agencies. And so really, to the Deputy Mayor's point, this is going to be a short-term solution and also something that we can continue to evolve. And so if there is something on the form that isn't capturing the concerns that you might want to raise, we are willing to edit that as we need to. And we're hoping to launch, we have a pretty good draft, so it should be live either this week or next week, and we can coordinate with the chair and also the MOCR to ensure that you all know how to access that. And then what we want to do is that we know that sometimes when an inquiry is sent, there isn't a timely response. And so we will do the internal work to triage that appropriately to the best point of contact. And again, this is just a short-term solution and wanting to try to address some of the immediate concerns, recognizing that a broader conversation will be needed going forward as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall, then Commissioner Tenderick, and then Commissioner Appa.
Thanks, Chair David, and a thank you to Mr. Turnage and Ms. Creighton for your work in getting this off the ground. It definitely begins to respond to the issues that we've heard for a number of years as commissioners, but I also, more importantly, think that you are addressing it in the right way in terms of looking to make sure that we're connecting people with the services and support they need, to be successful and have long-term success, in being rehoused. So wanted to extend that thank you because it begins to kind of move things down the path of what we've been asking for in terms of working with agencies to develop real and lasting solutions to house people successfully. My question would be is how have you engaged with the property management teams here in 3F? Like, have you introduced this concept to them to help them better understand this potential service and how it can help them in creating a positive environment in their buildings?
Yeah, actually, they have been, we've been on receive, actually. They have been sort of very instructive as to what they believe we should do. And I got a long email from one property manager that sort of laid out step by step what they needed from the city. So we've sort of relied on, their experience and some of their suggestions. And we've also talked, obviously, with Department of Human Services about the challenge and what they believe would be a most efficacious way to deal with this problem. So yeah, we have been in close contact with the property managers.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you both for coming on the call. I really appreciate it. Two questions. I think I just want to hear more about what's the purpose of this communication portal? And I get trying to figure out how would it be different from say if someone wants to contact 911 in the case. So I'm curious as to what would be the long-term goal of this communication portal? And that's my first question. Another question afterwards.
Okay. Well, 911 is probably not going to work for this population and this problem for a number of reasons. When you call 911 and they hear it's a tenant issue, they're really not going to want to respond. They're going to say that there are agencies in DC government that deal with that. And if you get the police there, their job is to not be counselors, but to arrest folks who are creating challenges. And that turns into a sort of revolving door. And frankly, MPD gets frustrated with it, and they say, "Look, this is not something that we can respond." And there have been calls where MPD said, "We're not going in there because this is something that other agencies have to respond." So our goal is to set up a process that will allow us to more immediately and timely direct the appropriate agencies to the apartments based on the the complaints that we're receiving. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. Some of the challenges are enormous. I've seen it with my own eyes, and there are no easy answers, particularly when you talk about the rules around committing people involuntarily and holding them. It's just a very different environment than existed, in many cases to the better, but in some cases it creates challenges that existed 50, 60, 70 years ago. So our goal is to use this portal to give tenants and residents an opportunity to communicate with us directly and immediately, and then we can turn around and get the right agencies on site as fast as possible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think oftentimes when I see people call 911 for the residents that are in need, it often just creates more problems. I've seen it in front of my building as well. My other question I want to ask too was, you mentioned the question of if someone is spiraling at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's no their case manager is unavailable. What is the reason why there wouldn't be just one available? Is it I guess, is it a staffing issue? Is it a hiring issue? What are some of the reason why the agencies are not responding as quickly as some people would like them to be?
I think, and that's one of the reasons we're talking about site-based housing. I don't think that there is staffing right now to have, if you're going to staff a post 24 hours, you need, I think from the old corrections model, you need, I think it's 3.4 people a year to staff that particular 24-hour post. And when you're dealing with, when you're not dealing with, site-based housing, but you have people living in commercial buildings, there's even on the space issue, there's nowhere for a case manager to be on site 24/7. They can certainly respond when there's a problem, but that response obviously would be more timely if they were on site, which is difficult to do in a commercial building. And that's why we look at site-based housing as maybe a long-term solution.
Okay, yeah, and I will say I think I definitely want to talk here more about like what on-site housing looks like to you. I have some concerns as to what that would look like and the reasons why behind it and stuff. So I'll just speak with you more on the idea of like on-site housing is like a solution for Venice.
Sure, absolutely. More than happy to meet with you anytime you want to have a discussion.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor and Ms. Creighton for joining. Appreciate all your comments. I just have a few quick questions. One, you said that you met with several buildings. I'm just curious, like how many buildings are we talking about in Ward 3 in terms of the apartments that your staff will be going out to? Because obviously understand that you have limited staff and there's a lot of apartment complexes in this area. I'm just curious about how many you've talked to and
I've been to, and my geography gets a little screwed up. I've been on 3 site visits, probably nine or 10 total buildings. Off the top of my head, I can't break down how many were in 3. But when we set up the portal, it will be citywide. It will be for anybody that has a complaint in any apartment.
Okay.
And we would be operating that from the advice that we've gotten from the site visits. So
Okay.
regardless of whether we visited a building or not, we will send out a communication to all the landlords where there are residents who are on vouchers, and we will explain to them the process for communicating issues to us with the new portal.
That's helpful. And then in terms of, this is going to be a new process. In terms of regular touch points, like, are there going to be follow-up, either community meetings or follow-up meetings with those building managers or with the commissioners to be able to, either shepherd the process or work through the process or get feedback?
Yeah, we have not nailed that down yet, but I can assure you that once we start this process, we are certainly not adverse to scheduling regular meetings with a group of landowners, landlords and community members to talk about where we are and talk about what adjustments, if any, need to be made as we move forward.
And another follow-up question around timing, and sorry to take up so many questions, but in terms of timing, I know there's a portal and there's going to be a turnaround process. I'm just curious, what's a reasonable time frame to discuss or to receive a response or to have somebody go out to meet that particular resident?
If it's what we do is, and I've in some ways my email has been the portal for landlords since we've met with them, and they send me an email, say, look, we got a problem in building X. I call up the director of DBH, for example, if it's a mental health issue, I call her up and email her right away. And I said, get your crisis team out to building X now. Mm-hmm. So we anticipate the portal as being a basis to allow my team to respond, upon receipt of the complaint to point the particular agency that needs to be involved to that site.
Mm-hmm. And while that's phenomenal, just knowing that with the portal, you may increase the volume that you get.
That is one of the concerns.
Right. So I'm just trying to understand from your perspective to set clear expectations from building managers and also from residents and also if someone actually truly is in a crisis, what is a reasonable turnaround time? And maybe you haven't just figured out what that timeline is.
I haven't figured it out. My sense is, and it's something we need to think through a little bit clearer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if anytime that something happens during the day or in the evening or even early night, I think it's not unreasonable for the landlords and residents to expect the city to get on that problem as soon as that response is submitted. Now, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and right. It might have to wait to sunrise because it's going to be difficult to staff this thing 24/7.
Right. And is this also available on the weekends?
Deanne, I can jump in with some of these logistics too, if it's helpful.
Sure.
I just want to clarify that I think it's important that this form is not meant to replace emergency services. So if somebody is having a crisis and they're either harm to themselves or others, that whether it's asking the CRT team through the Department of Behavioral Health or calling 911, this is not to be a substitute for those emergency services. This is more so if there is a voucher related concern that might be connected to payment or regulatory that might take a little bit longer to unpack to actually be able to get that to the right agency, because depending on the individual, so the Department of Human Services might be involved or the housing authority might be involved. And sometimes the holdup is because it's not getting to the right person at the right time. And so there will be verbiage actually in the form that will explain some of this. And I believe James had some questions too about 911. So that will already be baked into the form to help level set expectations about the turnaround time that would ensue.
Great, I appreciate that. And if there's any FAQs that we can help circulate as you guys are launching this in the next couple of weeks, we work pretty closely with many of the tenants associations. We would love to make sure that the tenants associations are also aware of this new system so that people can leverage this and utilize it appropriately as you have limited staff. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Thank you. So now we have questions for the community, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Turnage and Kiana, because we've got a few more minutes left with you, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to go to Kim, and then I'll go to Karen.
I think actually Karen was before me.
However you want to do it.
Okay, no, I thought that was in order, so.
Okay,
I would.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I put one question in the chat, and I have to confess that I have two others. The one in the chat is, what if the resident who is causing what Deputy Mayor Turnage has called disruption, what if that resident doesn't want to accept assistance or services?
Well, there are several things that it depends on what the nature of the disruption is. If it's criminal in nature, then that resident will probably be arrested. If it's not criminal and clearly a function of a mental health issue that he or she is refusing to allow services to be delivered to help them address it, then the Department of Behavioral Health has to decide whether or not they should FT12 that patient and take him to a mental hospital or her to a mental hospital.
So let me just say, I live in a building. I live in Sedgwick Gardens.
Yeah, that was one of the buildings that I visited.
That you visited. Okay,
Yes.
well, that's good to know. When did you visit here?
Kiana, when was it? About 3 weeks ago?
About, I think almost 3.5, but recently.
And did you meet with the building manager or with the owner of the building, Carissa Barry?
We met with, it was a team of people that we met with.
But I believe we had a separate meeting also with Carissa Berry over Microsoft Teams. So we had, the deputy mayor had the site visit, but there's been several meetings following that as well.
Okay. So what I was going to say about mental health challenges is we had a resident here who had a lot of mental health issues, and the building manager at that time, who is not the one who's here now, contacted the mobile crisis unit of the Department of Behavioral Health. And the idea was that as soon as this resident began to visibly have problems in the public space, the mobile unit would immediately come and address it. And what happened is that the building manager called repeatedly for the mobile crisis unit and was told, oh, we can't be there for 2 hours. Oh, we're so busy, we can't be there for 5 hours. And of course, by that time, the resident had retreated to her apartment. And when DBH did arrive, she wouldn't open the door. And there was nothing they could do. And that happened over and over and over again. And eventually, she simply wandered away and became a missing person, as designated by the police department. So I'm struggling with understanding how things are going to be different. You know, with the plan that you have, if you're reaching out to Department of Behavioral Health and this is, they're so busy or whatever the issue is, they can't really address the problem. There's not going to be a resolution there. So
Deputy Mayor Okiana, can you respond, please? I know I only have a short time with you, so you know we're just gonna.
I think two things. If a crisis team or all the crisis teams are on other calls, it may well be that they can't get to the site at that moment. Hopefully, those circumstances are few and far between. But if they're not
constant
on, well, then that's something that we'll take a look at. But they don't have unlimited resources. So, and these problems can be pretty pervasive across the city. Then it's a challenge. But I have seen circumstances where their response has been nearly immediate. So while it can be a problem, I've also seen it not be a problem. So we just have to evaluate whether or not an unacceptable number of calls have delays that we will have to address, maybe through increased resources. But I think the communication through the portal and the subsequent communication to the respective agency is a good way to start and see if that alleviates the problem you described.
And what will you do if a resident doesn't want to receive services?
Well, like I said, if it's criminal behavior, then that resident will need to be arrested.
What about addiction?
If it's addiction and they're acting out, the Department of Behavioral Health has the authority to treat it as an FD-12.
What does that mean?
That means the person will be taken to a likely PRW, a psychiatric hospital, and evaluated over a couple of days to determine if they should be, if their temporary commitment should be referred to the court for consideration of a longer commitment. Now, I can tell you,
narcotics. This is for narcotics addiction.
Yeah, but narcotics addiction, if it's feeding some kind of behavioral health problem, the narcotics addiction is not the underlying problem. So again, it depends on the circumstances. If the mayor has also funded a sobering center in her budget, and the council has approved it. Once those sobering centers go online, if it's merely someone who is intoxicated, doesn't have a history of behavioral health problems, or they're on drugs, then they can be taken to a sobering center and held there until they sober up. So the response will depend on the nature of the problem, and these are often very, very complex problems.
So, did you say Silverman? S-I-L-V-E-R?
No, sobering center.
S-O-B-E-R.
E-R-I-N-G.
Sobering center.
Yes.
Okay, Kim, and then Harry is the last question.
Sorry, Kim, you're on mute.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for meeting. I hear a lot about landlords and meeting with property managers. And I think it would be helpful if you met with the tenant associations and condo representatives. We've kind of been on the front lines of this for a long time. There's been a lot of harm. A lot of that harm has ended up on our staff We have a lot of victims in that sense because things were mismanaged. And I'd like to follow up on that, especially on one particular assault on staff. And are there efforts to scatter the trauma? Because it seems like there was an exceptional amount of trauma concentrated to this area. So are you looking at that? And the last thing I'll say is, I think landlords need to be part of the accountability of this process.
Yeah. To your first question, we're more than happy to meet with associations. We already have met with them. The mayor spent a considerable time with one association over in.
I was in that meeting.
Yes.
I was in that meeting, so.
Yes, and so we're more than happy to replicate those meetings. With respect to the placement decisions, I am not armed to respond to how those decisions are made. The Department of Human Services, under Director Zeilinger's very skillful direction, can better explain how residents are allocated or sent to particular apartments based on geography and other issues. So I would encourage we're more than happy to sort of reach out to Laura, get a response from her or her team and get that response back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harry Gural, it's the last question, comment.
My question, my video may be frozen. It looks
Sorry,
like
we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's muffled.
Your connection is fluttering. It's staticky.
Turn off your camera, Harry. That sometimes helps, I think, with data.
One second. Yeah.
No.
No.
Maybe put your question in the chat and we'll do it that way. If you could, can you do that real quick? We can't.
Harry, can you call in?
Or what we can do is just connect you with Kiana so you can follow up with her.
No, we want to hear his question, all of us.
I know, but we.
Can you give him the phone number?
Yeah, we have to move on. I'm
Give
sorry.
him the phone number to call, and he'll call now. Please. He's a key player.
Karen, we definitely understand that and I also want to hear Harry's question as well. If Harry can type into the chat, at least that would be great. And if we know, yeah, I know he's working on it.
I'm trying to.
Okay, Harry, we can hear you now. So maybe if you could quickly ask a question.
If it's working just for a minute. Here's the question. I think having a it's great to be able.
We can't hear you. No, please type it. Please type it. I'm sorry.
We're sorry,
I didn't hear
Harry.
from you, Harry, but if you can type it real quick, please.
Okay.
And while Harry's typing, I just want to make a comment, if I may. I know we're running out of time, but I'm stalling here. I want to also, again, thank Deputy Mayor and Sienna for joining us. I just want to remind the community, this is going to be an ongoing process. They're not going to have all the answers right now. We are working towards that. And I'm sure you guys all know. I know the community has been frustrated with some of these issues. This is also due to a lot of the work that you guys have done from the Venice, from the Tenants Association, raising this to the commissioners, and also, Claudette's work in trying to make sure, connect us with those community agencies. So this is all part of the effort to address all of the concerns that you've brought up regularly. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate the time and the energy in sitting with the mayor and working with this team and other teams as well. And so now we have the question.
Okay, and I see in the comment from Mr. Gural, sorry, Harry, I know you want to speak. Having a housing voucher is a privilege. What does it take for the city to take away a voucher when someone repeatedly causes problems? That is the last question.
That's a good question. I will defer to DHS. What I will do, Harry, is I will talk to DHS staff tonight, and if you could send me an email with that question, I will get it to the folks at DHS who run these programs and could speak directly to the specific circumstances that can lead to termination of a voucher. I have my sense as to what those circumstances are, but I don't want to speak out of school. So I want you to have a correct answer. My email address is wayne.turnage@dc.gov.
Thank you very much. And it's greatly appreciated. Miss Karen followed up with seeing if you could meet with the tenant association heads whenever you have a chance. But thank you so much for your time. We would like to follow up with just updates on how everything is going in our next monthly meetings, because this just has been such a huge issue in the community, in terms of people being able to get assistance. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Good night. All right. So now, thank you. So now moving on to the next item on our agenda, is do we have any representatives from DC Water to give any updates?
Yes, good evening. I'm Jarrell Johnson with the Soapstone Valley project. I'll be sharing my screen and we'll do a brief presentation just to give you an update on the project.
See your screen.
All right. All right, good evening, commissioners and community. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to come back before the ANC and provide you an update on the project. As I mentioned, my name is Jarrell Johnson from Chain Boyd and Associates. My team and we provide additional outreach support for DC Water on the Soapstone Valley project. So I'm here before you just to go over this brief presentation with some project updates and forecasts of some of the upcoming activities. Also joined by some of my team members who are on the line to assist with any questions or concerns. And I just asked if you hold any questions or concerns to the end of the presentation. All right. This is a high-level view of kind of the current status where we are with the project. Each of the sites listed out. Site 1, we are currently 45% complete with the stream restoration work there. That's where most of our activities have been taking place. Lately, sites 2 and 3, we have completed all of our stream work in those locations, and I have some photos later in the presentation as well. And sites 4, 5, and 6 we currently are prepping for upcoming stream work. Here's a look ahead for the next month of August for all of the sites and locations. We'll continue working at site 1 to complete there. We should be 100% complete of both sites 2 and 3. And then we will begin preparing for work at site 4. As it relates to sites 5 and 6, there will be no immediate activities at that location. Let's see. Small update on the boiler permit. As I mentioned last month, we had submitted a boiler permit that's currently under review by DOEE. This permit is required to perform any of the CIPP work on this project. So we will continue to keep you all updated on this process as the review process continues. And our team will be sure to provide ample alerts and notifications to the ANC and stakeholders once we develop a schedule, and then also prior to beginning any of those activities. We have been, our team has been made aware of some noise concerns near Site 1, which is located close to the Van Ness Apartments. The pumping noise that is being heard now comes from 2 pumps that are supporting the stream restoration work at that location. So the pumps that we're using, one manages the flow of the creek and the other manages the flow of a discharge pipe that's specific to that location. At this time, we anticipate completing Site 1 near the end of this month. And at that time, 1 pump will be removed from the site. The remaining work activities at this location will require the continued use of 1 pump. The timing of this exact work, we haven't determined yet, but we'll get there and continue to coordinate with our contractor and team on the ground. And we will also continue providing you all with updates as activities at this location continue. In response to some of the noise issues that we've heard, our team went out and we installed some noise reducing shelters around the pump to try to minimize the disruption. And our contractors, they are performing daily monitoring just to verify that the noise levels from our activities are in accordance with the District of Columbia Noise Control Act. And I do want to let you all know we are working as quickly as possible to complete the stream work at Site 1, just to minimize that time that we're there. Here's an in construction photo of Site 1. As I mentioned, we are about 45% complete as we speak. This photo just shows some of the stone installation and some of the asset protection and manhole arming that's been installed so far. Site 2, as we have been complete there. We finished up there, so we've been 100% complete for Site 2. Just some additional photos. Site 2. And now moving along to Site 3, we are 100% complete with this site. We recently installed the steps, some of the rock crossing and other stones and stream restoration features in this area. Moving along. And then, like I said, I introduced myself. I work hand in hand with Raisha Corey on this project as well. We help address any issues or concerns that may come up on the project. And then we also work hand in hand with Emmanuel Briggs, who you receive your weekly updates from, and he'll continue to send those out as we progress. And then we are looking forward to more folks joining. If you would like to join our distribution list for updates, please just email me to soapstone.info@dcwater.com. And this week we have begun the distribution of our first newsletter that provides some updates on just the overall construction project in progress as we move along. And then once again, we just wanted to be brief, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide you all with an update. We will now take a few questions from the commissioners first, and then the residents.
Thank you so much for your time. Just real quick question about sound and smell that we're getting complaints about.
Kevin, can you respond to that question?
Yeah, smell is a new one. I haven't heard that one. I know sound, it is due to, the pump around that we are required to have in order to do our stream restoration itself. As we noted a little bit earlier, we are actively trying to do every measure. We have put in place a couple additional ones, and we are still below what is our allowable on site. And as we do, we're continuing to see what else we can add additionally to try to lessen that sound for all that are getting that experience.
How much longer will that sound?
It's kind of all dependent. So site one itself, I think that is where, most of it is coming from. We do have 2 pump arounds, one for the stream restoration and one for that pipe that is coming from, I guess, kind of the metro area itself. So that requires 2 pumps at all times. Once we complete site 1, we can remove our pumps some as we go down on site 4. So the area in site 1 won't be as affected near as much, obviously, because there'll be a little bit more distance from the pump itself, different area. Then for the site 4 people might experience some increased volume, but I guess that will be determined once we do actively start working in that area.
So that's like in a week or 2?
About next month, we should be down towards site 4. And then from there, obviously, we have our weekly updates that we can make to DC Water, then that passes along to you guys.
All right, Commissioner Mehta, and then I'll go to Mr. Bardine and then Gloria Garcia.
Hello to the folks from DC Water. Thank you for joining once again. This is sort of more for the community to understand, which is that there is an ongoing conversation among DC Water, DOEE, and a smaller group of community members who have been following this project for up to 10 years now at this point. And myself included, not the 10-year part, but just the small group. We had an extended meeting this past Friday morning, just a few days ago, with DC Water and folks from DOEE, and most importantly, I guess in a way, the engineering firm AECOM that is going to be doing on DC Water's behalf the monitoring and testing of emissions released during the CIPP process. The reason why this is important is the CIPP process is basically on-site plastic manufacturing. And so from that process will be admitted cumene and acetophenone and potentially other substances. The asks that are outstanding from our community to DC Water and DOEE, as well as AECOM, I guess, is to get a further analysis of the ingredients of the composition of the liner that will be manufactured to rehabilitate the sewer pipes, to situate the mechanisms that are located before the cleanouts in the lateral sewer lines that connect directly to adjacent homes and buildings, to situate them before the cleanouts, and to provide information on the status, timing, and details of the boiler truck permit, which I think Mr. Johnson touched on briefly without really any details yet. And to provide information on the role of the Water Resource Foundation, which we understand will be the third party that is being retained by DC Water to oversee and monitor the daily emissions reports that will be generated from the project site. And finally, I do think that there is some work to be done regarding community outreach and communications about this project, because I receive regular inquiries about the timing of it. So we are awaiting information from DC Water on an updated project schedule, as well as daily start and stop times. And I have committed personally to working with Ms. Kirsten Williams at DC Water to augment community outreach regarding this project in terms of emissions reports, this project schedule, all of those various components about the project that are particularly relevant for the homes and businesses that are directly adjacent to the project site. So that information I hope is useful to help augment some of the more sort of temporal things that Mr. Johnson talked about in the update he just gave. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mehta. Is there a response from DC Water?
Oh, I just add concurrence to everything Commissioner Mehta just said. One very small clarification. the role of AECom is actually designing the monitoring plan, writing the monitoring plan. They wouldn't actually be doing the air monitoring themselves. That would be done through that third party under via the WRF contract. It's a small clarification point there, but otherwise 100% concurrence.
Okay, well, thank you. I didn't understand that, and that I'd say that that's actually a major clarification. So thank you for that. So the air monitoring plan is developed by AECom, but the implementation of that plan is by the Water Resource Foundation?
It would actually be by a university that the Water Resource Foundation hires. So the WRF is an intermediary between us and a university, and that university would be doing the air monitoring.
Okay, so who's
air
physically
sampling.
on site actually doing the air, like actually overseeing the air monitoring, not remotely at a university or whatever? Who physically
correct.
is on site doing this?
The university that WRF would be hiring, they will have people on site with the PIDs at the locations, and then they'll also be like the SUMA canisters that are collecting the air samples over the course of the entire day. They'll be setting those out in the morning, collecting them, and then delivering them to the labs for the actual tests.
Got it. Thank you. One thing I did fail to mention, thank you, Mr. Ellich, for that. One thing I failed to mention that's important is that the three folks in our community to whom we owe a huge debt of gratitude for driving home on these issues and really drilling down on the details for the benefit of the neighbors and larger community here are Marjorie Scher, Marlene Berlin, and Mitchell Bear. Mitchell in particular has a deep background in environmental science. Marlene has done phenomenal reporting and really has stayed with this project over the years, as well as Marjorie, who has been persistent from the beginning around trees to the, right to where we are right now. So thank you to all three of you for giving your time and energy on behalf of the community for this, to really work with DC Water and DOE on this project and being shepherds for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bardeen has a question.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your presentation. For your information, I served for 10 or 11 years on the board of directors of DC Water and Sewer Authority as a principal DC member. And my first question follows up on Commissioner Maida's points. And I got to express my sorrow that she's leaving the commission. She's done a good job, and I was hoping that you would be here for the next year or two or three to follow up, and maybe you will from outside. I'm concerned about the point she made that what's going to happen with CIPP, cured in place pipe, is an industrial operation outside in the open. And this is not something new. This is something, CIPP is something that DC Water has done many, many times before in various places. And I'm asking you point blank, does DC Water know what chemicals have been released in the past in these CIPP operations in various places? Is it just yes or no? Does DC Water know?
It's a range of VOCs that will be, and it's those same VOCs that we'll be testing for.
Does DC, Mr. Elledge, you know me, and I know you.
Yep.
Taking all the CIPP's experience that DC Water has, does DC Water know what chemicals and how much of these chemicals have been released in the past on other CIPP projects?
No.
DC Water doesn't know. Well, I hope
it's not information that was historically tracked. I mean, CIPP goes back to the 80s.
Yep.
David, that is precisely, David, that point is precisely, Mr. Elledge, this isn't a new conversation. That point is, the point you're making is precisely the reason why as part of our follow-ups to last Friday's meeting, our core group, working group asked for a further analysis, scientific analysis on the composition of the liner that is going to be produced on site beyond the cumene and the acetophenone that were discussed. Other VOCs. I don't know, Will, whether DC Water is looking at doing this, has agreed to do this, or has rejected the idea, because that's still an open question, and you may not be ready to discuss that right now. But David, to your point, that is still an open conversation.
Well, it's an open conversation, but I'm very disappointed, Mr. Eldridge, that DC Water hasn't, which wants to be a world-class utility and set an example for the rest of the world, and says that over and over and over again, has not yet, as far as I can hear from you, even one time figured out which chemicals have been released and in what quantities. Having said that, I want to turn to a second question, and that has to do with the cutting down of trees in order to get access. A few years ago, you had a leak issue east of Audubon Terrace. It involved what are called two segments of pipe. A segment is the distance from one manhole to the next manhole. So there were two segments, and they were, almost all of the work was east of Audubon Terrace, that is to say, not on the paved part, but on the unpaved DDOT right-of-way part. And the man who was supervising, I wish I remembered his name, was so concerned to minimize the loss of trees that not a single tree was cut down in that work. I gather from answers that have been provided under Mr. Gaddis's direction and under late leadership, somehow it's all changed, and dozens of trees have been cut down on that very same right-of-way. And it seems to me that there's been some kind of change of philosophy or change of approach in terms of tree destruction minimization. And again, Madam Chair, it seems to me that's something that the ANC should ride herd on, because nobody else will.
Regarding trees, an emergency response that has a single point is fundamentally different than what we're doing with an entire access path. I don't recall the number offhand, the number of trees that was in our permit or the bid documents. It's on the order of, it's more than 200, if I'm remembering correctly. And Kevin may be able to chime in here. But the number of trees that have been cut down to date is much smaller. Kevin, speaking a little bit for you as our contractor, I'm pretty optimistic that the incentive program that we created around cutting down fewer trees while still incentivizing the contractor is working, and that the final number of trees will be much less than what the permits allow.
And then
I'm
you.
glad.
Oh.
Is there more to be answered to there?
Kevin, is it premature to chime in on numbers? I mean, obviously construction's still ongoing.
Right, so I can't give final number. Obviously, we've done most of the clearing. All clearing to date now is done until our next window. That is allowable. We've done a good job working with both DDOT and then MPS, identifying trees that were originally taken out that were a larger diameter itself, and we're able to shift slightly in order to save these trees to minimize the impact as much as possible. So taking a tree that has been there a lot longer, more impactful, we're able to shift slightly in order to facilitate our work. I know with the scope previously that they were speaking of, it might have been smaller. We're doing a full system rehab. So unfortunately we have to get to all access points. So some tree clearing is required, but we are trying to lessen the impact as much as possible, as Will has noted.
Well,
thank you.
Can we just have a number? How many trees has DC Water or its contractors cut down east of Audubon Terrace on the DDOT right away?
We'll have to go back to the daily logs and such and pull that number, but we'll get that number over to you.
And you're doing, we have you on each month. So, you know, with updates. So September, our September meeting, we should be able to get more information. I think I've got a question from Joe Swerdlow.
It does say Joel Swerdlow, but it's Marjorie Scher. Hi,
Oh, hi, Marjorie.
everyone. Just a quick question, since you brought up trees. There's still, my understanding is that there's still 71 trees yet to be cut. And it was delayed because of the bat mating season. So those, I understood from Mr. Elledge early on that the trees are primarily being cut, not for the CIPP work, but for the stream restoration and perhaps for the outfall. But since you're almost finished, 45% finished with zone 1, the area near Albemarle and the trailhead, and there's still 71 trees to be cut in that zone, could we save some of those trees since you're nearly finished with that stream work and the trees are still standing? Is there a way to look at those with fresh eyes and save all or some of those trees?
Yeah, Kevin, are the remaining trees? I don't know if they're in site 1.
Yeah, they will. This is
okay.
construction manager. We've met. We've roughly identified the remaining trees, but NPS wants us to lay it out, so we should be able to give you the actual numbers. We're gonna Kevin, Nick, based on the meeting on site, we're saving almost. I mean, what we're going to be cutting down will be a third of the estimated tree that's supposed to be cut down inside 1. So we're saving a lot of trees there. We're working with NPS. They are so passionate about the trees too. So we're working with NPS. We won't cut any tree down that doesn't need to be cut down.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I've submitted questions that the DC Water has not answered. I would like to just state them for the record. I've asked, how many trees have you cut down already east of, on that right of way, east of the, on the D-Dot right of way I mentioned? What was the diameter, which means diameter at breast height? And I'd like to really know that about all the trees you're talking about cutting and would be thinking, and I've never gotten an answer. And I don't know why I haven't gotten an answer.
Okay, we can provide that information to you tomorrow morning. We already provided that information with by email by one of your citizens that requested it. We already have the information. I can.
Okay, I think you should.
But we can provide it to you by tomorrow morning.
That would be good. I think it's
David,
provided to the
David, I'm just going to jump in here. I don't want to get off too far on a tangent, and not to say that the tree questions aren't important, but they have been answered in previous meetings. And there was a chart at some point that was put up by DC Water listing the number of trees that their project would entail cutting down, and it was a significant reduction, thanks in large part, I think, to Marjorie Scher's efforts to get the number of trees reduced. If I understand correctly, Will, there were no heritage trees on that list, if I remember correctly, and the large number of trees, David, were small diameter trees, like really small diameter trees. The details are in a chart, and I will look on the ANC's website to see if I can pull that up. But Will, if you want to just send that one chart to me again, I'll be happy to pass it along to David, or you can send it directly to David. But it does exist, and it has been presented in previous meetings.
I would very much appreciate that because.
Okay. Yeah. And then regarding your second point around the chemical liner, the composition of liners. That is something that we are awaiting response from DC Water on. So I'll be happy to share that. And I'm sure DC Water will at the next meeting if they have that information by then. In the meantime, I think what would help allay a lot of people's concerns, Will, is if you could share with us a date prior to which the CIPP process will not begin. I think folks are, I am personally, I think other folks are concerned that all this stuff is going to start happening and chemicals will be released and plastics will be manufactured and all this stuff will happen while we're all kind of sitting in meetings talking about updates and schedules and things like that. when really the most important thing in a way is around the emissions and the monitoring and the toxins and all that stuff. So realistically, you don't need to commit to an exact schedule, but can you tell us where you are generally in the stream of things so that people are not sitting here worried this is all just going to get away from us and you guys are going to be doing all this stuff that we don't know anything about before it starts?
Yeah, I'll ask Kevin actually to chime in on it.
I was gonna say, I can answer that pretty easily. So I know without the air quality permit, we can't move forward with anything. I know part of that permit, there is a public outreach. So you would notify within that process. Upon receiving that, we would then start to install our bypass itself, and then we TV the lines, and then our CFPP. So I'm confident to say we're at least 60 days out before any CFPP work would occur. Without, that far out, it is, fluid within construction. So we would have ongoing, discussions with all parties and updating, but 60 days is earliest that you would see any CFPP.
Okay, we've got one final question from Diane, and then we'll move on to the next item in our agenda.
Hi. Can you hear me? So I live at the Park Van Ness. I'm right outside of Site 1, right next to Site 1, really. The noise has been completely intolerable. It starts at 7 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. It goes anywhere between 10 to 12 hours per day. I'm not alone in being just completely tortured by this. People are complaining that, we can't be inside our apartments during the day, we can't be outside. The attempts at mitigating the noise have been unsuccessful. I use a sound meter app on my phone, and the noise levels definitely go above 80 decibels every time I've measured it. And nothing that DC Water has done to mitigate this has been effective at lowering the noise. I'm now concerned too. I didn't realize this was the CIPP would be an issue. And I'm concerned now that that will compromise our breathing air quality as well. So I'm hoping there could be better communication at the very least in the future. So far, when I or other residents at the Park Van Ness have complained to DC Water, we've received little to no response from the organization. So I'm hoping that there could at least be a bit more communication about the timeline, the schedule, so that we can plan our lives around the construction.
Yeah, and we've heard that same request. Commissioner Meadows is asking for those same things. We'll definitely work on that public outreach and the communication, especially with the schedules and the start times and the stop times and such.
And I'll be sure to include you in the weekly updates that'll go out going forward.
Okay, I mean, we receive the weekly updates and they're very vague. They just say site construction is continuing. So we receive that, but there's no indication of what kind of construction it is, when it will be the noisiest, and any details like that. So it's not just about communicating updates. It's a matter of like actually engaging with us when we're saying that these are serious issues that we're experiencing, being in communication with us about that.
Understood.
Diane, we'd like to, one of the things we talked about in our meeting last Friday was to recruit people, folks, I mean, like you, people who are going to be impacted by the project, to join an email list. But to your point, that's fine. Being on that list is fine, but it's not just talking at you, but talking with you is what I'm hearing.
Right.
I will communicate that, Will, when you put me in touch with Kirsten, and we'll come up with a more robust communications plan, because I really do think we can short circuit some of these communications issues with a much tighter plan, particularly as we start to head into the months where CIPP is drawing closer and closer.
Perfect.
Thanks, Diane. I hear you, Diane. I know exactly what you're saying, and that was an issue that was outlined, so we will work to address it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chairperson David, there is a question in the chat. Do you mind if I just answer that one real quick, or do you need to move on?
Sure. Go ahead, answer real quick, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
We switched the curing methods. The water cure is a closed system, so there's not an emissions. We're doing this testing out of an abundance of caution. We're confident in what we're doing from a safety perspective and an airborne emissions perspective. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that point that was requested in the chat there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, DC Water. We'll be seeing you in September because you're giving updates every month. And I appreciate you making yourself available to us every month. Thank you and have a good evening. So moving on to the next item on our agenda is James with Buck's Restaurant. So we've got a public permit for an awning at 5031 Connecticut Avenue. Commissioner Oppa, do you mind sharing that PowerPoint so I could get the graphs on the screen? James, you're on.
Yes, hi.
Hi, James.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. This might be less compelling than the rest of the conversation, hopefully. And I just want to thank the commission. I've been appearing in front of this ANC commission for 20 years now. And it's amazing to see how it's grown and also how much more active it is than it used to be. And also more thoughtful, I think, in a way. So I appreciate the community support and involvement in this block in the ANC. I have 3 restaurants on this block, as you know, at 5031 Connecticut Avenue, you may know. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Muchas Gracias is a restaurant I opened in April 2020. It's a newer restaurant. My restaurant, Buck's Fishing and Camping, is what we're talking about tonight, which is pictured here. I opened in October 2003. So we're approaching a 20-year anniversary of this restaurant being open. And then, of course, I own Comet Ping Pong, a world famous pizzeria located one door down at 5037, which I opened in October 2006. So it's like 16 or 17 years open. This patio we put in years and years ago, and these tents, these blue tents you see, is like a temporary covering so that people can sit under them when there's inclement weather. And so our proposal is to add an awning that covers the patio. So this is like a rough rendering of what it would look like. It's a little more beautiful in real life, but these blue awnings, the blue temporary tents would go away. And essentially the original kind of canvas green that you see pictured slightly behind it would extend out and cover the existing patio. So the poles are a little less in the front, and it's essentially just keeps the customers the rain off their heads, basically. This is a letter of support from our neighbors. Little Red Fox and Sugar Fox are on the other side of us. So our direct neighbor is Little Red Fox. Then Muchas Gracias is to the other side of Buck's, and to the other side of Muchas Gracias is Sugar Fox. Those are both owned by Matt Carr, who wrote this letter saying that he believes that a year-round covered seating is a great amenity for our neighborhood and the many small businesses on our block. This picture here is from our ACU permit, which has filed all the permitting with the DC government. This has been through extensive, like a 6-month process of DCRA and also DDOT. So it shows the existing structure, it shows the existing patio, and it shows where the awning would cover the existing sidewalk cafe that we rent from DC. This is a rendering of the canvas covering, including details from a Hoffman awning, all of which has been submitted to DCRA and has been approved by multiple departments, including the connection details, the heights, the length, the width, and that's about it.
Well, I wasn't able to get everything for the information you needed on trees.
Yeah, well, so the tree question is a really interesting one, and I appreciated the discussion around DC Wassa and tree removal. I've been on that block for 20 years, as I said, and there are beautiful oak trees in front of the restaurants, which I've paid for through the restaurants to have them maintained and trimmed and watered and fertilized over the last 20 years. And they're not pictured here exactly in this image, but it's mostly been done through a tree service company that then gets permits to trim them with the city. And they're beautiful, thriving tree canopies, like old, gorgeous trees that are doing phenomenally well. So I hope to keep them going as long as I'm there. I also own the Comet building at 5037. So I'm like additionally invested in a way in the long-term sustainability of this block and the neighborhood. I also grew up in the neighborhood and went to Georgetown Day School, so I've been there my entire life. And these trees probably existed before me. The Comet building was a Thai restaurant before it was me, and I remember, and I've heard many stories of Cafe Burgundy in the Buck space now. So I'm in for sort of a long game here. And when I came to the block almost 20 years ago, it looked different than it does now. And I think it's been improved by my presence. And I think that this awning will be an improvement to the neighborhood because it provides both a safer and more sustainable solution than the tents we have now, these sort of like off the shelf rips tents that we replace consistently, and provide a nice outdoor space for people to sit and have dinner. I will be appearing again with you all. I'm proposing to do an additional awning in front of Comet and on the existing front patio there. So there's a different sort of slightly different angle of it, but it's very similar and by the same company. And it's still in the DC review process. So there's an existing gas line that runs into the building. So it's been in DCRA for like 6 or 7 months, like sort of just back and forth with commentary. So I think we should be able to clear that and be able to appear in front of you again, hopefully in your meeting in September.
Okay, thank you, James. I would like to present a motion to approve an awning at Buck's Fishing and Company Restaurant. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you so much, James. I will follow up with you with a letter.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of your great work for the community and for the restaurants.
Thank you. Thank
See you again soon.
Yep, we'll see you again soon. All right, and then the last item on our agenda is the resolution for Van Ness Main Street. Alex, are you able to pull that up as well? Or any other commissioner, are you able to pull up that resolution?
Sorry, I didn't have that one ready. Let me see if I can pull it up.
I might be able to do it. Hold on.
For some reason, I'm not able to do that right now.
I got it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Gloria.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it again on the short notice. So Art All Night will be the weekend of 9/23 and 9/24. And this year we do not have any exceptions. and we must go through the permitting process. And I am asking the ANC to give a blanket resolution to all the permits I may need that include definitely the Abra Entertainment one night addendums, as well as some public space permits that I may need and some certificate of occupancy. We may not need all of these, but this is what all the main streets, of which there's 20 of us that are going through this process, are asking their ANCs to just approve their, to provide their support for us going after the permits that we require to carry out Art All Night that weekend.
Last year's Art All Night was a huge success. I had a wonderful time. I remember I saw Commissioner Appa there as well. We had a great time dancing over by Calvert Woodley, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
I think this is, I move that ANC3F adopt this resolution in support of Van Ness Main Street's requests for Art All Night.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And I'm sorry, Gloria. you-
No, I'm just saying thank you so
Okay.
much. I think you guys are
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to another great night.
Motion passes. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And with that, we now move to the end of our meeting. Can I get a motion to end the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. And the motion passes. I will see everyone in September. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Have a good summer break.
See you, everyone.